Hi guys, welcome back to Off the Sidelines, episode 2. My name is Matthew Liam Bruni, and on the other line is Benedict Rhodes. We hope you guys are doing well throughout this pandemic as we continue to stay indoors and try as best as possible to keep busy. Ben, would you like to explain what you've been up to lately?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. My semester ended on Friday a few days ago, so sort of just chilling at the moment, not doing a whole lot. How about yourself? What are you up to?
Uh, well, I still have one more exam for my school year, so I've just been studying for that. It's actually this weekend coming up, so I've just been studying hard for that, try to just doing that really. That besides that and chilling out. Yeah. Okay, so the first topic we're going to get into today is the MLB's plan to return. Um, we've been hearing things about MLB returning to Florida, Arizona, and Texas as those three cities or three states, I should say, have considered hosting games. Um, do you think it would be a good idea, Ben, for for those three states to host games?
I think the MLB season, I don't think they can play a full 162 game schedule. And traveling all over the country a few times a week, I don't think that's going to be feasible,
Mhm.
especially if the season's not going to start for another few months potentially. But I think, like you mentioned, Florida, Texas, and Arizona. I think one idea we heard was splitting the divisions into grapefruit and cactus league, like in spring training.
Mhm.
But an idea that I was just telling you about, was maybe split, like there's the National League and the American League, and then those are split into East, West, and Central. So my idea would be maybe getting the NL West and the AL West, playing both of them in Arizona, two Central divisions playing in Texas, and the two East divisions playing in Florida, to sort of limit the amount of traveling, limit the amount of sort of logistical errors that could potentially happen. But as for a playoff system, I'm not sure how that would work with three divisions. Maybe the top two from each division, and then two wild card teams or something. I'm not too sure how that would work, but I'm
Yeah.
not opposed to the idea. It's going to be strange whatever happens, but yeah, that's sort of my idea. What about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, they definitely can't play without fans. That's a guarantee because
Yeah,
who knows how long this is going to go for. You can't have crowds of people at games. But I think throughout like all the ideas I've been hearing, I think that if whenever MLB comes back, probably like taking the AL and NL East and playing in Florida, taking the AL NL Central, playing in Texas, and AL NL West and playing in Arizona would be, I guess, the best thing to happen. But also we have to take into consideration the safety. Like you have to take players from wherever they're staying right now and like fly them into to one of these three states. So
yeah,
I think safety has to play an important role in what the MLB wants to decide for this season. Like how many games, because they can't play a full season at this point. We're probably almost what would be a month into the season, so they definitely can't play a full season of MLB. But
especially when a lot of players are coming from overseas too. Like maybe
yeah,
about half the league is American or Canadian, but there's also a lot of players from South America, Latin America, some from Europe or Asia as well. Like, there's gonna be
Asia, yeah.
a lot of international traveling, and if that's gonna cause potential safety risks, then I don't think it's even worth playing at all, to be honest. But I don't think MLB is gonna want to cancel the full season. I'm not sure if they'd want to play in three divisions.
Hmm.
So my guess is we're gonna see something like the Cactus and Grapefruit League split up, with Florida and Arizona hosting games.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out when the MLB will next come. We'll announce a plan so sooner than later. Maybe we'll find out in the coming weeks. I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
I think also something with the benefit of having Grapefruit and Cactus League is not only being confined into just a small space and being able to play in maybe four, let's say, minor league stadiums or something, but
mhm.
also having the two division structure, I think, makes it a bit easier when you're trying to make a playoff system, for example, on such a short season. I think instead of having six divisions and having one team from each division make it with wild card and stuff, there's not enough games, I don't think, to be able to split them up like have big enough gaps between teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, in terms of playoff races. So I think having two divisions and let's say top four from each division make the playoffs, or maybe even top two if we have a shortened playoffs. I think then that's probably the best way to go in terms of logistics as well.
Yeah. Well, just quickly in regards to the stadiums, I mean, they don't have to worry about where they're playing because they already have their spring training stadium
Yeah.
set. So it's not like they have to worry about, oh, where are we going to play? Like, in Florida and Arizona, they have their spring training stadiums. But I mean, in
Yeah, a
regards to
lot of minor league
Texas,
stadiums.
yeah, they could. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not aware about like how many stadiums MLB or baseball stadiums they have in Texas that can fit a season in or something like that. But well,
Yeah.
yeah, who knows?
And speaking of Florida, let's kind of transition to this. Um, NFL, pretty big trade coming yesterday.
Mhm.
Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement. It's going to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, pending a physical. Um, what do you sort of make of that trade, and what do you think that the Patriots got enough in return for Gronkowski?
Well, in regards to the trade, like when I first heard it yesterday, I kind of like I sort of didn't know it was real at first because I mean I didn't hear officially from like from an official account. I just saw like people talking about Gronk on Twitter, and then I started seeing different sources saying that. But at first, like the first reaction was like, wow, okay, that's that's pretty interesting. Like just he came out of retirement, he asked to be traded to Tampa Bay, and I mean, it's just interesting, like the situation in Tampa Bay now, because like who knows how they'll fare out in the NFC, especially with like in their division with the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons, and just even in the NFC in general with like great teams like the 49ers who just reached the Super Bowl, the Saints, Seattle Seahawks. There's a lot of great teams in the NFC, so it might be tough for them, but uh, I mean, I don't know how it's going to fare out. We'll have to find out if there's going to be an NFL season this
Yeah,
year. But yeah, what do you think about though? Like, what was your first reaction?
I was a bit surprised because it's not the first time we've seen a player come out of retirement and say, "Trade me or I'm going to retire." Like we've seen it before. It
Hmm.
was Marshawn Lynch a couple of years ago who said if he isn't traded, then he's just going to retire from the Seahawks.
Yeah,
So I was a little bit surprised to see a Gronk coming out of retirement. I did not really expect that because he's been doing a lot of media stuff. He's did some WWE wrestling, I think, as well.
yeah,
He's been doing a lot of sort of Rob Gronkowski things since he retired. So I'm a little bit surprised to see him come out of retirement, but I'm I always kind of thought if he was going to come out of retirement, it would be to try and win a Super Bowl. He wouldn't come out just for the sake of playing, I don't think. And if he thinks that he can do that in Tampa Bay and with Tom Brady again, then I don't. I like the trade. I think it's gonna be beneficial for both him and Brady and the Buccaneers.
yeah. It's definitely a great reunion for both of those teams, especially considering how great they did in New England. And I think the city of Tampa Bay, like Buccaneers fans, are excited now, like considering that it's been a long time since they've made the playoffs, and
Yeah,
since
2007.
2007, it's been a while. So I think, and also another thing to mention is that Tampa Bay is hosting the next Super Bowl, so it should be an interesting around there, especially like depending on how great this team does. Uh, Personally, like if we talk in regards to how they'll do next season, depending on, I mean, we still have the draft to do and
Yeah,
other things, but if there is a season next year, I feel like the best they can finish is a wild card. Maybe like, I mean, the NFL is expanding their playoff teams. Like they're adding one from AFC, one team from the NFC. So I mean, I think they have a better chance of getting into the playoffs as a wild card. I don't think they'll win their division. I still think the Saints are the best in the NFC South. But yeah, I mean, I think the best they can finish is a wild card. How about you? What do you think?
yeah, I agree with that. I think the extra wild card spot definitely helps them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they draft well, and also a lot of players, since as soon as Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay, all the top free agents apparently have been calling the GM and calling the coach and stuff and saying, "I want to play with Tom Brady." I want to play for Tampa Bay. So I think they're going to use that to their benefit. And they already have some good receivers as well. And so just adding Rob Gronkowski to that, who's
Yeah.
arguably one of the best in his position of all time. I think they're going to be a good team. I don't know if they're going to beat the Saints like you said, but I think they'll be competitive and probably make the playoffs if the season happens, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll be good though.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out. And like I mentioned, I mean, last year they had 7 wins, and they had a quarterback in James Winston who was an interception machine. So who
Yeah.
knows? Like when you take him out of the quarterback position, you put in Tom Brady with Gronk. Like who knows how great that team's gonna do.
And what do you think of the actual return for Gronk? Because the Buccaneers, they traded a 4th-round pick to the Patriots, and in return they got Gronkowski and a 7th-round pick. Do you think do you think that the Patriots got enough in return, or do you think the Buccaneers they just want to get rid of Gronkowski and sort of just took the hit on the trade?
Um, I think they got enough. I mean, I don't think I think that two picks in the NFL draft makes sense. I mean, that's a reasonable trade because it was 4th and 7th round if I'm not mistaken.
The seventh went to Tampa Bay.
So yeah. Oh, sorry. 7th went to Tampa, and then
The
okay.
fourth
Yeah.
went to New England.
Yeah. I think it works out well for them. I think that was a fair trade. Do you think it was fair?
I think it was in the sense that Gronkowski was just going to retire if he didn't get traded. So I think
Mhm.
at least you're getting something for him,
Yeah.
as opposed to just losing the asset and not getting anything. So I
Yeah.
think in that sense it was a good trade, but I don't know. I think the Tampa Bay definitely won that trade though.
Tampa for sure. Tampa won that trade. Yeah.
It depends on who they draft, of course, but I don't know. I think I'd rather have Gronkowski in a pick over a higher round pick.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. We'll see how they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So just today, as we're filming this episode, the NWHL made a big announcement. They are expanding their league to 6 teams, and a new team is going to be coming to Toronto. Uh, and this, of course, the season starts in November, so they're going to start playing. Well, if we have the season, depending on how long COVID goes for,
Yeah.
they're going to be starting this November. What did you think about it when you first heard the news?
I was pretty happy. I think when the CWHL folded, it was pretty disappointing for a lot of hockey fans in Canada.
Mhm.
And but I know that Toronto and Montreal both said pretty much immediately they're going to go and try and expand into the NWHL. So I think the announcement isn't necessarily a surprising one, but it is one that I'm glad is happening. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think we already had 5 players announced today as well. No name yet, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to go to a couple games whenever that starts up.
Yeah, and of course the CWHL team that was in Toronto was named the Toronto Furies. Do you think they would use the same name, or would they change it up?
My guess is that they're going to change it up. I think the Toronto Furies was if they were going to continue with that name, I think they would have already announced that.
Mhm.
Like right now on all their social media and stuff, they're just branded as Toronto NWHL. So I think my guess is if they were going to be called the Furies, they'd probably say that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they'll be called or any possibilities, but I don't think it'll be the Furies.
Well, of course, as we know, the CWHL they folded last season because of financial difficulties, and some of their teams. I mean, you would think they would like to continue in the NWHL. Do you think they should expand to cities like Montreal, Calgary, or any other cities, possibly in America as well?
I think growth of the league is always going to be important. I hope that a lot of the players in the players union as well will decide to end up playing the NWHL at some point.
Mhm.
Um, Whenever the league hopefully becomes fully professional and those players start to join on, I think that'll be a pretty big moment for the league. And yeah, I think Montreal seems inevitable. If not this year, then maybe next year. And I know Calgary they're talking about. I've read online, but I'm not sure if they're going to be expanding there unless Calgary gets a ownership group with a lot of money and can afford to travel that team around and pay those salaries, because that's a pretty big road trip for all the teams are in sort of the northeast part of the United States and Canada.
Mhm.
Calgary is a pretty long road trip, so I'm not sure if Calgary
Yeah.
will ever happen. But yeah, I'd like to see the league. Maybe if the league expands more on that side of the country, maybe we could have like 2 divisions or something. But
Yeah.
at the moment, I think Montreal's gonna happen, and another American team will probably happen. But other than that, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, of course, before Toronto was announced, they had 5 teams, like 5 teams, one in Buffalo, Connecticut, the New Jersey area, Minnesota, and I can't remember the other one right now,
Boston.
but it's more
Boston.
like, yeah, Boston. Sorry, it's more like Eastern, except Minnesota's a little west, but that's like the farthest.
Yeah, not as far as
Farth-
Calgary or though.
exactly, yeah. So I
if,
think,
if, if they maybe expanded more west, like maybe like I don't know, Seattle, Vancouver, Portland, I don't know, like some places over there, you could have like
yeah.
a east and west type of deal, and that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and also like depending if if you said if they go west, like Seattle's gonna have an NHL team soon, so
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see how successful they are, and like even if they introduced a women's team, like how successful that would be for the city of Seattle.
Yeah, I think if they were to show up around the same time, that could be pretty huge. If
Hmm.
they say they sort of play off each other, if they work together, maybe even owned by the same group, like that would be pretty huge.
Yeah,
I think it just depends on if the NWHL can become fully professional. And another, they want more sponsors. They're trying to get more sponsors. I think it needs to happen before you start attracting the top players again. And then when you get the top players, and also a lot of players are not playing at the moment, then you'll start to get the top players back, and then hopefully expand further.
yeah, like you said, you definitely need some great players like from to play in that league to I guess to be successful and
Sort of attract the interest a bit more.
exactly, yeah, yeah. Okay, so since there's no NHL playoffs, me and Ben thought that we could uh, name the greatest NHL team from the past decade to win the Stanley Cup. Um,
Yes,
and
hopefully something will continue over the next few weeks as well with NBA, MLB, NFL. We'll go through all the different leagues in future episodes
yeah,
as well.
definitely, yeah. So
This week
this
we're gonna
week,
start with NHL.
yeah, yeah, this week we start with NHL. So, Ben, do you want to say your team, your greatest NHL team to win the Stanley Cup the past decade?
Yeah. So I've gone with the 2012-2013 Chicago Blackhawks, because that
Mhm.
season was shortened by a lockout, but the Blackhawks were dominant. It was 48 games, and they picked up 77 points, which would have put them most all time if you got those points over a full 82 game season. They would have had 132, which would have put them right at the top. And they of course won the President's Trophy as well. So I think that makes them one of the better regular season teams of all time, even if it was a shortened season. But also into the playoffs, they beat the previous 2 Stanley Cup champions, the LA Kings and the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup final. So I think that's another reason why I think they're one of the best teams. They managed to beat 2 other very, very good teams.
Yeah,
And also look at some of the players on that roster, like prime Jonathan Taves, Duncan Keith, Marian Hossa. Patrick Kane is one of the best goal scorers of our generation.
yeah,
I think that team was just incredible. And another pretty crazy statistic is they're the 8th and most recent team to win both the President's Trophy for most points in the regular season and the Stanley Cup. So I think for that reason, I think they're the best team over the last decade to win the Stanley Cup.
mhm. Yeah. Also, I was going to mention that that's a great pick. I was going to mention like, especially in the Stanley Cup final when they beat the Bruins in I think it was 6 games. Like
Yeah,
that game in Boston, like how they scored just 2 goals, like straight. I think it was under 20 seconds, like just in the last couple minutes of the game. It was crazy to see how they won the cup that season.
yeah,
It
they're
was
just
pretty
such
exciting.
an entertaining team.
Yeah,
They
definitely
their top lines were just incredible. Like one of the best teams we'll probably see for a while.
for sure. Yeah.
I don't know about you. Who's your pick?
Okay, so I chose the 2016-2017 Pittsburgh Penguins. So that season, they finished second in the league with 111 points, and they were only behind the President's Trophy winners, the Washington Capitals, who had 118 points. Pittsburgh in the playoffs did manage to knock them off in the second round in 7 games. And then in the Stanley Cup final, they went on to beat the Nashville Predators, who had an unbelievable run as a wild card team to make it to the Cup final, winning in 6 games. And this was their second Stanley Cup in a row. Previous year, of course, they beat the San Jose Sharks. And that season, they were very loaded. They still have some of these players today, like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Phil Kessel, just to name a few. And also their 2 great goalies, Marc-Andre Fleury, who plays for Vegas now, and Matt Murray. So that's my pick for
That's a
best
pretty
team.
stacked team as well.
Yeah.
And I think a couple other teams you mentioned there, some of the teams that were also candidates for this list. Like if Nashville had gone on to win the Cup that year, we'd probably be talking about them on this list as well, because they are the run they had. And then mentioned the Washington Capitals, who of course won the Stanley Cup a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Ovechkin finally getting his cup. And we have one honorable mention as well, of course, the St. Louis Blues from last season. Because they're the worst team. They're the worst team in the league in January, but then went on an amazing run, made the playoffs, which is a miracle in its own. Then defeated the Bruins in the Stanley Cup final to win their first Stanley Cup. And some of the star players on that team as well, of course, like Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, David Perron, Jordan Binnington was really good in net. Like that team was just incredible. And I think story-wise, I think that was probably the best team we've seen over the last 10 years. But I think I'm not sure if they would have beaten the Blackhawks or the Penguins in their primes, like we just discussed. But the St. Louis team was pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you look at that team from last season, it was just crazy. Like considering, like you said, that they were last in the league in January, and that they went on to, like after Jordan Binnington's first start in January, early January, he just became a dominant goalie for the rest of the season into the Stanley Cup final, and it was just great to see how they managed to win the cup like that. But I think also, like, if this team won the cup, the Nashville Predators in 2016, 2017, if they somehow managed to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think maybe they would have been considered as another honorable mention because, of course, like they were in the wild card. They beat the Chicago in the first round, and then they went on to of course, lose to Pittsburgh in 6 games. But I think also, like, if they did win that cup, I think they would also be another honorable mention to consider.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe in 10 years, we'll be talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs in one of these lists, but
I hope so.
highly doubt it, but we can hope.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Speaking of long time ago, throwback games. We talked about this last time on episode 1. They've been showing a lot of old Leafs games from the 90s and early 2000s over the last couple of weeks. And so what have you been watching recently?
And I've been watching, actually, in MLB. I've been watching the Jays Rangers series. I've been watching. I watched Game 5, of course, because that's the Bautista home run, the one for the ages. I did watch a couple of games, like the second game, and I think fourth I got to watch as well. Yeah, that Game 5. It was just like I was reliving it in 2015 again, like that crazy inning with all those errors, and then of course that Bautista home run. I think that was probably one of the best moments. I mean, it's just crazy. That was a crazy inning. It was definitely fun reliving it. Like, of course, it's not live, but it's great reliving it 5 years later. But yeah, what about you? Have you been watching anything?
Yeah, I also watched the Bautista game. I think that's probably the best sports game event I've ever watched in my lifetime. So always good to relive it, and also picking up on things that maybe you missed 5 years ago, little moments or sort of like some of the bench clearing brawls that happened in that game. I didn't really realize at the time how they started, and looking back, I can now see that. And also, Sportsnet had a pretty good watch party thing going on where they had some special guests come in, like the umpire from that game, and Jose Bautista himself was there. Ryan Goins was there. John Gibbons sent in a video message as well. Like there's some great guests on that. I've also been watching some old Toronto FC games. Last night I was watching the Boston Bruins and Philadelphia Flyers game from 2010 playoffs. where the Flyers came down from 3-0 to win the series 4-3.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yes, that was pretty good to watch. And yeah, I've been watching pretty much a little bit of everything really. And I watched a few Expos games as well. They've been showing some of those for some reason.
Mm.
So and those have been pretty cool.
Oh, cool. And I was also going to just mention quickly, like in regards to what we've been watching, I've also been watching the 2016 run from the
Yeah,
Jays, the
yeah,
wild card game, the way the ALDS against the Rangers again, the sweeping them, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, those that was also something I watched too.
Yeah, that wild
Uh,
card game was pretty special that year because another big home
oh,
run, Encarnacion's home run was another pretty big one.
yeah,
I don't
it
think
was crazy.
it obviously wasn't as crazy as Bautista's, and it wasn't
Oh
sort of
no.
as appreciated maybe as Bautista's, but that was a pretty important moment in Blue Jays history.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything on TV that you perhaps want to see more of?
Um, I'd like to watch. I know there's more Toronto FC's and be showing more sort of throwback games over the next couple weeks, and the MLS YouTube account has been showing some stuff. So I'd like to watch some of that stuff as well, of course. And then there's the new Michael Jordan documentary that's just coming out, so I'd like to watch some of
Yeah,
that as well.
Last Dance. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get to that at some point on this channel. Hopefully, we'll see, and then yeah, I'll watch pretty much anything. To be honest. What about you?
I think besides MLB, I think maybe maybe last year's Stanley Cup final, maybe like the whole 7 game series again, like even like just a couple of highlights from like a couple of Stanley Cup finals from the past decade, like the Washington Capitals run St. Louis, the
Yeah,
ones we mentioned, Chicago, Pittsburgh. Also, I think maybe they can replay NBA finals games like the 2015, 2016 seasons were exciting. Of course, last year's was already played on TV,
I'll probably
but
show them again though.
exactly, it would be great to see them again. Even like the Miami Heat, when the Miami Heat won too, would also be something great to watch. Um, but yeah, I think that would be great to see on TV.
And I also like to see some older, like much older stuff, like maybe the first ever Blue Jays game from 1977. Like obviously we never experienced that.
Hmm.
I don't think it's anywhere online, or if it is, I haven't found it. So it'd be kind of cool to watch something like that, maybe, or even maybe even more modern than that. But like old Raptors games, first Raptors game, or that kind of thing. Like sort of games that weren't in our lifetime and we've never been able to see before. It might be kind of cool to sort of experience some of those games.
Yeah, I was also going to mention actually because I know NBA Twitter is was playing some NBA games, like some uh, older NBA games. Sorry, and I saw that they were replaying Vince Carter's career high 51-point game against the Suns.
Okay.
That was something I was watching actually, just to make a mention of it. But yeah, I would definitely love to see like old Raptors games, old Jays games,
Yep.
old
Or some of those games where maybe not just Toronto, of course, but like
yeah.
other games where there's like some kind of milestone. Like I think Terrence Ross scored 51 points in a game once for the
I think
Raptors,
so.
so maybe that would be a cool one to rewatch. Or Carlos Delgado hit 4 home runs for the Blue Jays a couple decades ago.
Hmm.
Or maybe Roy Halladay had a perfect game in the World Series or in the playoffs anyway. I'm not sure it was the World Series, but like so the best moments over the last 20 years are Kobe's 81-point game or his 60-point game from his last ever game or something like. So some of these sort of like milestone record-breaking games would be kind of cool to watch, even if it's not Toronto or Canadian teams. Even if it's just like another team, it'd still be cool to sort of relive some of these iconic moments.
Yeah, definitely. And also, just because I know we've been talking about baseball, hockey, and basketball, but maybe also something I've been seeing was Super Bowls, old
Yeah,
Super Bowls. They can also be replaying a couple more of those because there's been a lot of great Super Bowls in the past decade. So, and even past that. So,
and
I
a
think
couple years ago or last year, maybe the Minnesota Vikings had a pretty crazy game, didn't they?
uh, the Minneapolis Miracle.
Yeah. So you could watch something like
Yeah,
that, maybe, or
yeah,
some. Yeah, I'm not really a huge football guy to be honest, but I'll watch big games. I'll watch Super Bowl and the playoffs pretty much, and
yeah,
it'd be cool to, or even Grey Cups as well, like CFL would be kind of cool to watch.
yeah. I'm same as you. I'll watch any. any playoff games or anything that's on TV.
Yeah, exactly. I saw some live stuff back. I was watching tennis as well recently, like Wimbledon from 2016, I think it was.
Mm.
It's just good to get anything on at the moment. A little bit of variety is nice with tennis or curling or something. But
And
yeah,
Andreescu's, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, and Andreescu's U.S. Open run last year too.
yeah, that'd be a good one. Or Milos Raonic when he got to the Wimbledon final a few years ago.
Yeah,
Watch some of those games maybe. Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff on, but definitely missing the live stuff. That's for sure.
yeah, definitely. Okay, well, that does that. This wraps up our second episode of Off the Sidelines.
Yeah.
My name's, of course, Matthew and Bruni and Benedict Rhodes.
Yep.
We thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.